tremendously to that effort of helping things like computer science education across the state.
Yeah, and let's talk about that one because that was a huge win. All
absolutely.
three of us were involved in that. Charlie was on the education committee at that time. Other Charlie. And,
but barely though. This is your time to shine here.
But this is one where you can think of it locally, but it really is a state issue.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, when you think about federal, you're going after big dollars to make things happen. Like broadband, you needed federal dollars. But this was a state issue, and you did get Memphis, Chattanooga, I'm assuming Knoxville people as well, and obviously everybody here as well as even down to like Murfreesboro, which is south of Nashville. You brought everybody from the state together. We did, I know, some educational stuff. What was that process like, and then what was the result of it?
Well, yeah, what is it though that we're talking about first?
Yeah. Sure. So, and let me step back just a second.
Go for it.
Because I think this really ties back to data, and you were suggesting some ideas of, obvious topics tying a lot of what we're talking about to data. Mm-hmm. Data advocacy, right? So an organization like ours is a workforce development organization. Mm-hmm. We care most about helping to grow the local industry, helping grow but personally as people that work for this organization, why do we care? Mm-hmm. We want to make this place a better place, right? We want to live in the place that's growing and want to make sure that everybody has great opportunities. Mm-hmm. Well, workforce development is all about getting people into those jobs. Yep. And how do we know, like we talk a lot about the industry in Nashville is growing, and it is by leaps and bounds.
Yep.
How do you quantify that? Right? Where are the opportunities? So we didn't used to have a jobs report that said what the market looked like, what jobs were available, what are the skills that are necessary for those jobs, where are the people looking, what's the supply look like, right? And I know talking with you, at least early on in those conversations, and this is always the topic when we go to Capitol Hill, is workforce development. Yep. As a region, are we developing enough talent to fill all those open jobs?
That's right.
And when you look at comparative data, we worked with MTSU and have worked with them for a number of years to generate a great report that helps break down all that data. They look at national data so we can compare ourselves to other regions. And comparatively, no, we're not doing enough. We're not doing, there's not enough happening to get more graduates to be able to fill those eventual entry-level jobs. Yeah. And then, especially expert jobs. No, there's not enough talent yet. And so
we can't rely on solely transplants.
It doesn't come out right. You have to build your own, right? And it's been said so many times, but like the places that will continue to succeed are the places that planted the seeds.
Yeah,
right? They did their own work, and so from a data-driven policy, being able to figure out, okay, well, how many graduates do we have out of these programs? Okay, well, then how many butts in the seats of those classes do you have? You can't have graduates without having people attending the class. And if you don't have enough students attending IT classes, then you're never going to have enough graduates. What does it take to get more students into those seats early on? Yeah. Well, it turns out that kids are scared of tech in elementary school and high school. They don't know. They see it as a scary thing. If they see computer science, that looks scary. They don't want to take another science class, I guess.
It's skewed by gender too, right?
And it's very skewed by gender and race. You don't. It's a problem, right? Because you see a lot of white dudes in tech. It's a giant problem. But once you start working at the local level and talking to students and working with administrators and teachers and helping them to understand that a lot of this is problem-solving skills. A lot of this is trying to just generally expose students to more tech, and it's obviously become a lot easier every day as more students have devices in their own pockets. So they're not as scared as they maybe were previously, but they don't program for those devices.
Right.
Well, getting kids to understand that is not such a scary thing. It can be a little, I think the barrier to learning tech can be steep, but it's not long.
Yeah, I think a lot's put on teachers though in that case, but I think that ties into the work you were doing as well.
But that's the other side. So on the other side of that is not just that students don't get it so they can pursue a track like that, but you don't have enough teachers to be able to teach the students, or they don't have the qualifications, or the state law is written in a certain way that there would never be enough teachers because they can't do enough professional development to be able to teach those things.
Yeah.
And so that coming from all those angles, that really was what not just me and you give me a lot of credit and I don't deserve, but I think a lot of people across the state were very concerned about that. Folks like Mega Igwekwe runs
Yeah.
Code Crew in Memphis, John Wark locally. Like there's a lot of folks that and this the TSIN the STEM organization locally, all coming at it from different directions, wanting students to have more access, wanting teachers to have more professional development. National groups like Code.org knowing the impact that code can have for student learning to build a tech career down the line.
Yeah.
And then just our local tech industry. Like I just remember one of the times when we were talking about these jobs reports and you were just looking as like, we don't produce enough students. Like look at
It's
these
not even
other
close.
students. Like it's not even
Yeah.
close. And you could never get there, even if you were at capacity to do that.
Yep.
We could never get there until you had enough students learning at a younger age
Yeah.
to be able to get into those classes down the line, or just even spark an interest.
There you
Just
go.
build a vocabulary.
And we used to always talk about it where, there's nothing worse than teaching bad computer science in 8th grade. And if you don't put the resources behind it, it's not the teacher's fault.
No.
They're throwing sometimes the track coach at it and they're learning. And I would go into these classes with them and they're like, please just take over a couple of my classes. I'm buried in them.
Yeah.
They're trying to learn it at the same time as the kids and doing the best that they could. But what if there was resources behind it? And I know that our approach was just have a computer science class in the system. So if there's, we're not even talking about every school. We were just talking about having it within a district kind of thing. And because it was considered a vocation, it still is in Tennessee. And most schools did not have something tech at all.
No.
And in Nashville, I don't know if there was any at the time. Rutherford County had a few, Williamson County, so
that's
the
why
outskirts.
That's why Williamson County has its own building for their entrepreneur stuff, is because it's considered vocation.
It is a vocation.
Yeah.
That's
weird.
Yep.
Well, that's how, the academy model here in Nashville that we have, there are schools that do focus more on that, and that's how the model is built. So two things. I think there's a few things to unpack there. I think the opportunities there are giant, right? But setting the policy aside for just a second, so much more about advocacy is about not passing laws, right? It's very little, actually. That's the last step. And getting people to care about the issue, educating them, understanding why all this stuff is important is tremendous. But like all the other stuff you have to do to get kids to care about tech, it's not just teaching it in schools. When they're not in school, a lot of the stuff that we do at the organization is trying to get at kids when they're not in school, right? To helping them get opportunities to
Like
participate in
camps
tech.
in the summer,
traveling
or
tech days.
you guys have had traveling days.
Right. And that helps build connections in different ways, right? So you could be in a classroom trying to learn a computer science skill or some problem solving skill, but helping a student to see what it's like eventually to do that thing in life as a career is super important. And helping them see many views of that and helping them to see many people doing that hopefully some of which look like them is super important.
I'm with you 100% on that.
Right. And so getting them out of the classroom and into the business or into the environment is a giant piece of advocacy too, because they have to understand what they could be down the line. And if they don't understand that, there's no way that they will ever be passionate just for computer science unto itself. Maybe I'm a geek. I like coding in some things, but most people aren't. And if we need
And we need a lot of people in tech that are not coders.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I say code is the easy
Yeah.
to go for, but like there's so many different things, so many different aspects of having a tech job, and that's what's so important about taking kids to go see a company that isn't a tech company but employs so many tech people.
Well, that's what when the kids would come by our office back when we actually still had an office. It was the same. That was what it was. Like, we don't do development; we do customer support. But they can see how we work with technology from top to bottom to get it done. And I 100% agree with the position of, like, you're showing those kids a new way to be. like a new possibility.
Right.
And as somebody who had that happen for me, I very much appreciate that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, right. And so there's also this dichotomy of like, yes, the overall reason why I, as an employed person at an organization that's like a chamber, do this is because there's more tech jobs to fill. And so you want to get people into those jobs.
Yeah.
But that if you look at the data, tech jobs pay almost twice what the average job pays in Middle Tennessee.
Yep.
That's a life changer. That's a family changer,
Yeah.
right? If you can get someone into a career that pays twice what an average job pays, and it doesn't take that much more education to get into that job for many entry-level jobs, that's huge. You're automatically, you're very quickly, if you can get people to make that shift, you're very quickly getting people into better paying jobs. All of a sudden, housing becomes more affordable. All of a sudden, education becomes more affordable. There's so many more opportunities when people have more resources. And to the extent that we can help students know from an earlier age that that's an avenue that they could take, and they could see, oh, that person looks like me. They have a job that makes a lot more than maybe my parents make, or maybe that my family makes, or what have you. They all of a sudden have a goal. They have an inspiration. They have, or even like whether they're seeing something, a person that looks like them doing something that they could do, or whether they go to an office and for whatever they're doing at that office, they get inspired by it. Right. That's what I think. That's why innovation is should be so enticing to more people, is because there's so much excitement about seeing something cool and new that can really get kids especially interested in doing it and can inspire them to pursue a career. And so that's why I think innovation writ large, I think, is super important to expose more people to, because I think it's inspirational too. But
Change is definitely scary, but think about it for these kids. Like you're setting them up to break cycles. And so that's definitely change on their part.
Yeah.
And so you're creating change via innovation and proactive networking and advocacy and all this other type of stuff. But that's what it all boils down to, is you're changing the prospective future of individuals in your community to increase their well-being overall.
Yeah. And as an example, like you, Charlie, who hasn't been to the Hill, hasn't gone and
You
done that
rub
other
it in.
stuff. Yeah, well, I'm trying to say, go do it. I'm not saying that, because you're still doing advocacy.
Yes.
You still do advocacy even though you're not passing bills. I think that's very important to say, even to the point where when you saw a gap in Nashville for training, you all here at the Nashville Technology Council, by the way, we haven't even mentioned, we're actually at the Nashville Technology Council, Tech Hill Commons. We're in one of their conference rooms right now. We're right next to their big room and their nice kitchen. But you guys are gracious enough to have us
we're
here.
excited to have you.
But you chose to actually create those courses, and you changed people's lives. So advocacy is more than just going out and saying somebody do it. You actually, here at the Tech Council, and I know there's a lot of other tech councils that do this, create those programs themselves. That's advocacy on its own.
It's leading by example too.
And doing the work, right? It's so much of the work that organizations like ours do are the hard work that a lot of people don't want to do or focus on. And it's tough stuff, but it's more, we're not in the classroom teaching. That's what you do. Like, or the apprenticeship program that we work with Nashville State and Vol State and Nashville Software School to put programs together to get people not only education, but credit, and help them down the line of trying to help them find possible jobs. I'm not an educator. I don't know how to do that, but you see the demand, and you have to go for what the opportunity is to help those people. And the other side of the equation is there's open jobs, right?
Yeah.
We're also helping the industry that needs to have those jobs filled.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work to do all around to help, what we call the workforce pipeline, to get more people into that pipe. There's many different ways to go about it. Traditional ways, non-traditional ways.
Absolutely.
Learning off of YouTube. I don't know, whatever it takes to help people get into those opportunities, and helping businesses understand all the different new ways that people can come at those.
That's a big deal these days too.
Is a big education piece too that we've worked on for years to help companies and their HR departments change the way that they have applications written, and don't rely so heavily on the 3 to 5 years of experience. especially in the latest technologies. Can you
Oh,
imagine
man.
if someone said 3 to 5
No.
years experience in AI?
There's a running joke on the internet for like programming languages that like you need 5 years of experience for the language that's been out
Don't
for
exist.
24 months. And
Yeah,
stuff.
there you go. By the way, what was the result of the computer science
Oh, yeah.
in education? Is there a result at this point?
It hasn't been fully
It's being
implemented
implemented,
yet.
right?
It's being implemented right now. But the over 4 years, there were four different years that we advocated for this, and various different ways. And in the last run, it's always great to have the king rooting for you. And so the governor decided to introduce his own legislation about it, which was super great
Yeah.
leap forward.
Yeah.
And dedicate and do it the right way, right?
Yeah.
The first legislation that Make It helped to introduce was a computer science requirement because he went right for it.
Yeah.
Knowing that wasn't possible and folks didn't care for that, we compromised over a few years to say, oh, no, what if we just make it available and not a requirement? What if every school had the opportunity to make it available so a student could have access but not a requirement? And what would that take, and how much money would that take to educate teachers and all the rest? And then finally, last year, the governor, after talking with the staff so many times, turned around and said, no, we're going to make it a requirement. And not only are we going to make it a requirement, we're going to make it a funded mandate where they put dedicated dollars, recurring dollars towards educating teachers and coming up with a plan to change how curricula was developed in that area so that teachers could get new qualifications very easily to do that. And then, after a few years, there would be a high school graduation requirement as well as some middle school requirements too.
In 2028, right?
No, it's at the beginning of next year.
I thought that by the graduating class of 2028.
Graduating class of, yes.
Yeah, sorry. The graduating class of 2028 is going to be the first fully like guaranteed to have computer science as a part of their education.
I actually don't think there's a delayed impact of it. So like I think I think starting the piece that everybody was waiting on was kind of the ratification of the new education rules. And so I'm pretty sure that kicks in at the end of next year. So starting then is when students will start to have more requirements to be able to do that.
So they got to take extra classes, but that's not where it stops, though.
It won't necessarily be extra. It'll be kind of a substitution of some other class or a new option. But yes.
Yeah, so they'll have options for the comp sci class, but also it's about changing the way that teachers are teaching, the analogies teachers are using. It's like instead of Tommy's got 2 apples, it's like Tommy's got 2 iPhones, or whatever. It's simple stuff, but it's introducing a more tech-based vocabulary to the youngins from was it 3rd grade was when it started? Yeah. So then that's a good age from a technology perspective for kids to start picking up on it and whatnot, because their brains are getting there.
And that was the other thing about all the policy was that we finally helped to get it passed. Then we get to do the other hard work of working with bringing industry together to say, okay, well, are the specifications that the education folks are writing relevant to the industry?
Yeah, that's what we helped with some, right?
Which is exactly what I was going to say. That was the part.
Yep.
No, I mean that you were already bringing it up. So I mean that was the part that was wonderful because we were able to bring industry, that our members, together and say, okay, let's review what's being proposed and give input because they're asking, and we have a great opportunity to make an impact now. It rarely happens that industry has such a great opportunity to actually impact the K through 12 education piece of it. So
I felt good about that.
Yeah.
You should, because it was a great ability to have that kind of impact, and it rarely happens. So thank you for participating.
And it was it's a long play. If you're doing advocacy, it takes time, it takes trust, it takes all of those important things. And I noticed early on, because people were in such need of help, people weren't interested in talking about high school and middle school. They just wanted people. And then over time it was like, well, wait a minute, now we live here, and so once you saw the roots of companies really here in Nashville, and I think it took time, then people got on board, and then it just became a snowball effect, and it was great to see. I was shocked that it became a requirement in every high school.
Well, that was a change there at the very end.
Yeah.
that was.
Or at least I didn't know about that.
That's what the governor introduced.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were asking for like way less, and then he was just like, well, let's do this. And you're like, oh, heck yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example of what advocacy can be, because it's so much more than just passing the bill, which was important, but you even did education well before any of that, and advocated, help, introduce higher ed to companies. I mean, the fact that I'm here, this is my gateway to companies, has been the Nashville Technology Council. So
Yeah.
and that's been great for companies to see. Nashville Software School has absolutely benefited in the right ways, helping you and also helping companies get the talent that they need. And
Heck
so that has been a huge thing. Alex, let's talk about the future a little bit. What do you think is?
One last thing about the comp sci thing is like you're shirking responsibility, for, like the positive type of responsibility. It feels like to me. So I'm just gonna I appreciate you moving the ball and keeping it moving on that. Like that was very it was very needed, but that is exactly the part that you overemphasized today. And so for those of you who haven't been paying attention, he said multiple times, it's about meeting people. It's about going to where they are. It's about getting to know what they think about things, so you can better tell them what they should think about things.
Absolutely.